Anita Vandenbeld is his parliamentary secretary. She does join us from here in Ottawa. Hi, Ms. Vandenbeld. Good to see you, and thank you very much for making time for our program tonight.
Glad to be here.
I wanted to start off and ask you about reporting from my colleague, Ashley Burke, who is reporting today that Vice Admiral Hayden Edmondson, who's in charge of human resources for the Canadian Armed Forces, was investigated over allegations of inappropriate behavior with female subordinates back in the late 1990s. Was your government aware of those allegations prior to him being promoted in 2019 to manage military personnel command?
The minister learned about the allegations yesterday about what happened in the 1990s, and he has asked the Chief of Defence Staff to look into those allegations.
If the minister just learned, as you and he says that just learned of these allegations, what does it say about the vetting processes in place for people when they are promoted or for people who hold positions of this power in the military?
Well, I think these are all legitimate questions. I also think that we need to make sure that there is due process for people. But this is exactly the issue: is that we've worked for a number of years and put a number of measures in place, but obviously it's not enough, and obviously we need to do more, and that's where we are focused.
And I'm going to ask you about what you mean by that in just a second. Just one more question on this. The position that the Vice Admiral holds, sources tell CBC, gives him authority over career consequences for military members found to have engaged in sexual misconduct. Is your government comfortable at this juncture, and I am mindful of due process, but at this juncture with these allegations out there of him holding that position?
I think what's been said from the beginning by the minister and by others is that we have absolutely no tolerance for sexual misconduct, and anything that would suggest otherwise, anybody who behaves otherwise, that is something we take incredibly seriously, and that's something that will be dealt with.
Is he removed from this position while those allegations are looked at?
As I mentioned, this was just yesterday, and it would be under the Chief of Defence Staff, and the minister has asked the Chief of Defence Staff to look into that.
Does your government have a position on whether or not this individual should hold that position, given it is intricately tied to the idea of rooting out sexual misconduct in the military?
I think if anybody is found that they were actually not either looking the other way or not acting on anything like this, if people are found to have done that, if people are found to have committed sexual misconduct, obviously, if that is the case, then no, people should not be holding positions if they are guilty of these offenses.
Speaking of looking the other way, that is what the opposition is contending that your government has done on this issue, in particular where former Ombudsman Gary Walborn's testimony is concerned. He described last week before the Defence Committee that he brought forward a complaint and some allegations around then former CDS, or now former CDS, I should say, General Jonathan Vance, and that the minister didn't want to see the evidence. We know that the minister says he took it to the PCO, the Privy Council's office. They said, we don't have enough here to act on. But the allegation is that your government has turned a blind eye to people in positions of power committing these, or allegedly committing these acts. Can you tell Canadians watching right now that you haven't done that?
Absolutely, I can tell Canadians that, because as you can see, as every bit of reporting and every bit of testimony is coming out, it is actually consistent that the minister did act, and he did what he needed to do appropriately. He did not politicize the investigation. As you heard him say today in question period, nobody wants a politician being the one investigating. So what he did do is, and if we take a step back, there was a complainant who wanted to remain confidential. It was an informal complaint. It was brought to the minister's attention, I believe, inappropriately. I think that is something that many other authorities could have looked at, whether it was the Provost Marshal or the military police, the NIS, the Military Complaints Commission, the SMRCs. There were a number of places that Mr. Walborn could have gone. And the minister, doing what he should have, ensured that he did not politicize, that he was not part of that chain of evidence. He can't be part of an investigation because he has a role to play in the military justice system. But the next day, immediately, he took it to the proper authority, which was PCO. And they brought Mr. Walbourne in that day. And what we know now is that Mr. Walbourne couldn't or didn't provide the evidence, which I think we know now was an email. And at that point, we don't know if he went back to the complainant to say, PCO wants to do an investigation. Would you now be willing to come forward? We haven't heard if he did that. But at that point, we also know that the minister's office reached back to Mr. Walbourne, as did PCO, to try to make sure that that complaint, whatever it was, whatever evidence there was going to be investigated. And I think we really need to look at when you have somebody who doesn't want to come forward. And we did take action. I mean, the fact that we know that the minister went directly to the proper authorities, that is exactly what he should have done.
But with respect, the idea that you're saying that Mr. Walbourne could have taken it to all these other authorities, they all exist within the construct of the military, right? And that is what the primary contention has been. Like, how can we expect a full investigation to take place when it happens within the military's chain of command? And even when it comes to the minister himself, as you put it, doing everything he could to explore what might have been contended by the victim, your government keeps referring to the idea or using the defense that the victim did not want to come forward. But I think about it in a real life situation. If the victim doesn't want to testify, does that mean that the police don't look into the allegation? I mean, I think the contention the opposition is making is that your government could have done more to ensure that the man who was currently occupying that position was not guilty of those investigations, especially since he is in charge of Operation Honor, of the operation meant to root out sexual misconduct in the military.
So actually, the National Investigation Service and also the SMRCs are actually not part of the chain of command. So there are options there. I would have hoped that Mr. Walbourne, if there was something that would have needed military police investigation, that he would have gone to the military police. And that is something
So it's all his fault?
I think that what we have here is one of those situations where, and we don't know what the woman was saying, or could be. I mean, we know now it was a woman. What she was saying to Mr. Walbourne, but what we have here is a situation where we want to investigate. Were the processes sufficient? I would say we now know that we need to do more. We need to change institutions. We need to make sure women feel they can come forward. I don't think it's a coincidence that when women come forward, it's usually after the person is no longer in that position of authority. And that's not right. We have to create a system where people do feel that comfort level that they will be protected. It's what we want. And unfortunately, it's not what's happening right now. And that's why we're looking at all options. The minister has said all options are on the table. Our committee has heard some incredible recommendations. Madame Deschamps, we have academics like Professor Eichler who has come. There's some very good recommendations. And I can tell you right now that this is a continuum. We did a number of things in the last 6 years. Operation Honor was just one of them. We have the Path to Dignity and Respect. We created the Sexual Misconduct Response Centers. We've looked at a review of all unfounded cases, created a case management system to look and track all cases. We've now got an advisory panel on racism discrimination in the Canadian Armed Forces, and we're continuing to do more. And we're listening to what the recommendations are.
Again, with great respect, though, Ms. Vandenbeld, we are where we are still today. And on the subject of what more your government is going to do, how soon will that happen? And in reference to Madame Deschamps, for example, recommendation, which was to create a truly independent, and I know you've created a sort of independent investigative center or sexual assault and misconduct center, but a truly independent center. The Globe is reporting that is something your government is going to pursue. Can you confirm if that's the case and when that will be created?
I think you will be seeing more coming very, very soon. There have already been things that have been in the works that I think will be announced in due course. But I agree. I think nobody can listen to the kinds of stories that we have heard and that we're probably going to hear more from. And by the way, any woman who is listening right now, I want to encourage them to come forward. You will be protected. We are making changes. And I think that the idea that we need to have a more independent process and also more clarity for women about where it is that they should go if this is happening. And it's not just women, it's women and men. But if people have more clarity, they know they're going to be protected. We make the culture, the total culture change that the minister talked about in the committee, and a number of things that we're doing, I believe, are working toward that total culture change. Has it been too slow? I think it has. I think we need to go a lot faster. And you heard the minister say the time for patience is over. So yes, we are listening, and the solutions are there. The advocates, the women, the researchers, veterans, serving women, they know what the solutions are, and we're listening.
Okay, Ms. Vandenbeld, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.